we've got our hoses. These stupid flashlights, are you kidding me? Come on.
Welcome to the Aqua-Cultured channel, featuring my 1989 44-foot DeFever offshore cruiser. And myself, Ashley Ringlespaw, aka Captain Butch. Join me as we perform some boat maintenance and repairs and enjoy the benefits that come with this amazing lifestyle. I have been living aboard for the last 12 years, and I look forward to sharing with you what I have learned and the experiences that happen along the way. This is the Aqua-Cultured life.
So I got a little bit of egg on my face. In the previous videos, I mentioned how I've got these original Marinaire split air conditioning systems from 1989 and that they work great. Well, I'm going to be replacing one of them. Did mention, however, that I have had these repaired many times, mainly because they developed refrigerant leaks. The old copper tubing over time just gets these little pinholes that lets the refrigerant out, and then you go from nice cold air to warm, uncomfortable air. So I've had those repaired many times. The aft unit I've had done a couple of times in the last couple of years, and lo and behold, it's starting to blow warm again. And you know what? I'm tired of the unreliability and waiting for the next leak to develop and then having to fix it. So I am just going to replace it altogether. So I'm going to rip this guy out of here. Forward stateroom air conditioner is still working fine, so that's going to remain. But I'm going to go from a split system to a self-contained system. So I'm going to free up this space. It will be nice to have that little bit of space for extra storage for spare parts like water pump impellers, fuel filters, and stuff like that. So that will be nice. I'm sure eventually I'm going to remove that forward compressor as well, so that'll free up even more space. The trick here though is that I'm going to now have to run my raw water, which comes from right here all the way to my aft stateroom, which you can see it has to run all the way to the back of the engine room. The exhaust hose for my main engine goes back there, and the refrigerant lines go back there as well. So this hose right here that goes up to the compressor is going to have to go all the way to the back of the engine room, through that bulkhead, and then all the way to where the air handler is in my aft stateroom, which is where the self-contained unit is. And not familiar with a self-contained unit, it just means it's all in one. So the compressor, the evaporator, the blower, it's all in one little skid, one little small package. So rather than having a compressor and an evaporator and air handler separate from one another, it's just going to be in one spot. So I have to get the raw water all the way back to the self-contained unit, and then it's got to come all the way back here because all of my air conditioning effluent water comes out of the side of the boat here. You can see there are three through-hole fittings. That's where the water goes overboard. So I've got about 60 feet of hose that is going to go all the way back to the stateroom, then come back here and go overboard. It's a little bit ridiculous to have that long of a run for raw water, but the alternative is drilling a hole in the side of my boat in my aft stateroom near the air conditioner so that the water just goes there and then goes right out near the unit. But I don't feel like drilling a hole through the side of my boat right now. I might do that in the future if this proves to be the wrong move by decreasing the water flow from my water pump, because there's only one water pump that feeds all three air conditioning units. So we'll see, but if it works great, then wonderful. I don't have to put a hole through the side of my boat, and I freed up this space, and then I'll have a nice, reliable, self-contained air conditioning unit in my aft stateroom, so that will be nice. A little walk to show you where that water hose is going to go. So obviously it's going to start from here. It's not going to come out here, obviously. We got to go that way. We're going to go up to the forward stateroom. We're going to come into the salon. Here's all the hose that I just bought. So this is 5/8 inch Shields water hose. I've used it a lot for air conditioning projects and whatnot. It's good hose to use. It's easy to work with, so that's what I bought. And it was around $5.99 a foot, but I have a port supply account, which saved me quite a bit of money. It saved me like $175, so I only spent about $164 on that hose. So anyways, we're gonna keep going back here, back into the aft stateroom. And so the hose is going to come through the bulkhead over here behind this cabinet. So you can see these hoses here. This is my main exhaust hose. Here's some water lines. This is the refrigerant copper line. And so, I don't know if you can see up in there, but that's where it passes through the bulkhead. So it's gonna go right through here, through this wall here, and then that's gonna come out behind this mirror, and then it's gonna go back to this closet, which is next to my bed. And here is where the old unit is. Obviously, this is the evaporator and air handler and whatnot. And so this is where the chase is for the hoses to come through and electrical. So I'm gonna pull this unit out of here. And then obviously, just to show you, this is where the control pad is, which is gonna get changed out. There's where the air comes out. And it is gonna be a tight fit in here to put the new unit in there. I might have to modify things to get it to fit, and especially to hook up the water lines and whatnot. But I'm confident we'll get it figured out. We'll make it work. The complicated thing is going to be the electrical, because since we're going from a split system to a all-in-one system, the electrical is just a little bit different. So it'll take a little bit of time figuring that out, but we'll get that sorted out, and I'll show you what we do to get that hooked up properly. The plumbing part is pretty straightforward. It's just running hoses, connecting them up, and then of course we're going to hook up the condensate line as well. And the air conditioner that I ordered is a Marinaire 9000 BTU, which is the same unit as what I have in my salon. Here's the control pad for it, and then it's kind of a mess in here, but the main unit, the self-contained unit, is down underneath this bench seat here, but that is a 16,000 BTU unit, and I've installed several of these over the last like 7 years or so. I put 2 of them on my last boat, 1 in here. I installed another one on a neighbor's boat, and I've had good success with them. They're easy to work with, they work great, they're quiet, they blow cold, and I've run them for years without any issues. And there is a little bit of confusion, of course, between a couple of the companies. There was a company a long time ago called Marinaire, and I'm sure a lot of you with the older boats are familiar with these. They've got the 3 knob controls that, and it says Marinaire with like 15 R's on it. This is, I don't know if I'm even pronouncing it right. I always call it Marinaire. It's M-A-R-I-N-A-I-R-E, I think. So it's a little bit of a different company, but I think it's quality so far. I've heard other people use them and have good success with them as well. So I'm looking forward to having reliable air back in my aft stateroom. It's going to be great. Okay, so we're going to start feeding the water hose up through the bulkhead. I've decided my plan of action. It may not be the best plan of action, but it's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start from the head back here and go through the cabinet here, through the hole, through the bulkhead, up to the front of the engine room, and then I will finish the rest of the hose back through the cabinet here to where the air conditioner will go. So we'll see how that's gonna go. I've got 2 ends taped together, because I'm going to run 2 of the hoses at the same time, because I think that's going to save me a little bit of time and a little bit of frustration. So we'll see if this pays off, but we'll fish this through the hole, and then we'll have to grab it on the other side of the bulkhead above the fuel tank. Okay, so we've got the first part through. You can see my 2 hoses going in there. See the hole there? I've got to fish through. I pushed a good amount of it through, so we'll see how much of it made it through and if I can reach it. Alright, so it looks like I didn't push it through far enough yet, so you can see up there is where it's going to be coming from. You can see the hoses. You probably can't see in the camera, but they're popping through, but I need to push them far enough forward so I can reach them. It's not real easy to get a handle on them from way back there. That's a big fuel tank. It goes way back. So hopefully we can get it. Okay, I pushed it a little bit further forward and we have success. It is within, come on, you stupid flashlight. There it is right there. So it's within reach, I can grab it. and run it the rest of the way. We have success. So we've got our two hoses here that I've run from all the way to the back of the engine room, and I've got a little slack here. So that part is done. So we've successfully pulled the hoses all the way through, so you can see they are here ready to go. But I didn't mark which one was which, so I need to find out which one is going to be the inflow and which one's going to be the outflow. So I'm going to go into the engine room and pull on one of the hoses, and whichever one moves, that's the one I'm going to mark with either the outflow or the inflow, and then I'll install it accordingly. So I marked one of them with a piece of blue tape, so you can see this guy here. So that is going to be the inflow. So that's going to be from the pump going to the air conditioner, and then the other one is going to be the outflow. So I'm waiting for the new one to arrive, which should be coming in any time now. I just wanted to get the hoses set up so that when it does come, I can slap that sucker in there, hook up the hoses, do the water test, and then get into the electrical side of things. All right, so the new air conditioner came in, so we're gonna do a little unboxing for you to show you what I got. So I ordered it on Friday afternoon and got it this morning. So today is Monday, so Friday to Monday it took. It came from South Florida. I'm in the Tampa Bay area, so wasn't very far away, so it didn't take long. I put it up on the table here to give you a better view. So like I said, it is a self-contained unit, so everything is all in this little package here. So this is a 9,000 BTU Marinaire. Has the compressor, the evaporator, air handler, and blower all in one unit. So you can see this is where the air returns. This is where you hook up your raw water for your inlet and outlet. Here's your blower back here. So you can see the 6-inch duct there, which this can rotate up to better fit your space. Inside here is the compressor. So it's in a nice little sound enclosure, so it's nice and quiet. And then this is your temperature sensor, which you do have an extension cord for that, so this can go out further into the room so that you can get an accurate temperature reading from inside your room rather than just the air that's returning back to the air conditioner. And then they give you, let's see here, here's the control pad that just hooks up to the main electrical panel, which is right over here. So I got to mount that in the space in the little cubby hole as well, and that just connects with like a telephone cable looking thing or a modem cable. And you have a nice little handheld remote, so you can control the temperature remotely. And then let's see here, oh, here's the condensate drain. So that is one thing you definitely don't want to forget, is this thing will sweat a lot, and you want to make sure that it drains properly into your bilge or into a little catch pan or whatever that gets pumped overboard. You don't want to forget about that, because then it will just overflow the little pan and create a mess. You don't want that. All right, so we've got the hoses run, we've got the new air conditioner ready to go in, so now we need to get the old air handler out of here and disconnect the electrical, which you definitely want to remember to shut off the electrical to this unit here. So I've got the breaker turned off so I can safely take apart the electrical and get this unit out of here and get the new one in. All right, so I've disconnected the refrigerant lines, the copper lines to the air handler and evaporator, which it had pretty much already leaked out the refrigerant, so that wasn't a big deal. And then I disconnected the drain line, and I've moved the unit out of the way. So you can see, this is the cabinet here. Oh yeah, and I've removed the duct, of course. This is the electrical panel, and so an important thing to take note of before we take those connections off is make note where those wires that are coming from the engine room, where they connect on that panel, because there is some very important labeling to make note of so that we put things in the right place when we put the new unit in there. All right, so I've got the new unit tucked into the little cabinet here. It sticks out a little bit. The fuel hose that comes down from the deck that goes to the tank underneath my bed is keeping it from being pushed back much further, which is fine. It sticks out a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal right now. I will probably be rerouting that fuel hose at some point because I've already alluded to that I might be pulling the fuel tank out from underneath the bed. So I will leave that for another day. I'm just going to leave this as is where it is. It's not that big of a deal for me at this time. So I've got it plumbed in. We've got our hoses. These stupid flashlights. Are you kidding me? Come on. So we've got our water out at the top, water in at the bottom. So that's all connected up. I've already tested it. No leaks. And there's plenty of water flow. So that run of 60 feet or 30 feet each way, not a big deal. It really didn't decrease the water flow much at all, if anything. So now we've got to do the electrical. So here's the control box. Here's the, oh damn. There's the wires that I took off the old one. And the conundrum here is there are 7 wires that were connected to the old box, and there's only 5 connections on the new box. So I've got to go into the engine room, open up the control box in there. That is kind of the in-between between the air handler and the compressor. See how that's wired, see what's necessary there and what's not necessary, and see if it all makes sense, and see if I can reuse the wire connections, which I'm hoping I can. I don't want to rerun all new electrical, but we'll see. As always, stay tuned. Okay, so we've got the water plumbed in, which went great. There's no leaks, there's plenty of water flow. Now we're at the complicated part where we've got the electrical. We had the old junction box back here for the old air handler. It had like 6 different connections. I made note of where they were connected to, what the terminals were labeled as, and then I need to trace down essentially 4 important wires. 2 of them supply the power, so 120 volts need to be supplied to this unit, and then the other 2 wires are what's going to be connected from this junction box to the pump relay box. So when this unit turns on, it needs to turn the water pump on so water flows through this unit. So those are the 4 important wires, and then of course there's a ground wire, which I've already identified. That's easy. I'm hoping that all of the wires are here that I need, but then we have to go into the engine room after we get this all hooked up and find out what is useless in there, what I can get rid of, because there's a lot of wires in there. There's the pump relay box, which is fine, that will stay, but then there's a control box that's above the compressor, the condenser unit. So there's a lot of wires coming and going into that box, so I need to get rid of all that crap so I can get that old unit out. So I've got the breaker on. I've got the wires safely spread apart here, so there's no leads touching each other. There's no, there's nothing connecting to each other. So I can now take my voltmeter there, got it set to 120 volts, and we need to find if we have 120 volts here. So that will be the first step. So let's see. Okay, so I think it's going to be my blue wire and my white wire that are going to supply the 120 volts. So we're going to touch that, and bingo, we have 120 volts. So the blue and my white wires are my main power, so that's good. So this unit has power here. So then the next task is to find the pump relay wires. So I'm going to connect 2 of them together here that I think are the pump relay wires. Then I'm going to go in the engine room and find the 2 that I think are the correct ones there and ohm them out with my voltmeter. So we just want to make sure that those are correct, and then we'll be able to hook all this up to my little junction box and should be able to run the unit, hopefully. Okay, so we're down in the engine room now. We're going to try to trace down the pump wires, but I'll just go ahead and show you. So this is the compressor, the condensing unit. There's the control box up there. There's the pump relay box down there. And then the water pump is here. So that the water pump is connected to that pump relay box. And then look at all these freaking wires. There's like 4 different cables that go into that box. And I gotta figure out if there's gonna be a problem with that junction box, me removing all those wires or not. If I need to, I don't know if the power that's running to the aft unit is first going to this box and then going back there. So if that's the case, that's gonna be a little annoying. I'm hoping that I'm just getting direct power back to the aft stateroom, but we're gonna find out. All right, we are pretty much done. The unit is in, we've got it plumbed. So we've got our water feeds, we've got our drain, we've got the electrical box over there, we got the electrical all straightened out finally. You can see the duct is hooked up back there. Here's the new control panel. And it was a little bit of a challenge getting the wiring done. The plumbing was all very easy. But like I said, that there were 4 essential wires that needed to run from the control box here to the engine room. And so the 2 main wires are the power, your hot and your neutral, and then the other 2 are your wires for the pump relay. So when this air conditioner turns on, you need the water pump to turn on, so it circulates the water for it to work properly. So that part was pretty easy with the pump wires. Yeah, so I had a blue, a white, a red, and a black wire. The red and the black wires were easy to identify as the pump wires. I connected them together and then went to the engine room and used my multimeter to check for continuity. So you use the ohm setting and it'll let you know that there is continuity, and it identifies that those are the wires on the other side, rather than having to physically trace down the wires from end to end. Using that multimeter definitely makes your life much easier. But then the blue and the white wire I knew had to have been for the power, but there was no blue wire on the other side, and I was going through all the different combinations, which I'll show you in a little bit. There's a ton of wires in there from the old boxes, and trying to figure out what they all went to was very difficult. And so the blue wire disappeared back behind this space here, and there's no access there. So I had to just contort myself to look into the hole with a light and finagle the wires back and forth enough so that I could see the transition from the blue wire to whatever color was next. And what they did was connected the blue wire to a white wire. So in the engine room, it ended up being 2 white wires that were the hot and the neutral. So obviously that doesn't make sense, and that's why it took me a little while to figure that out. So that was ridiculous. So now we're in the engine room and I need to figure out what went where with the wiring, which I've already got everything hooked up. This is kind of an after the fact, but I'm just walking you through what I did. So I should have recorded it, but I didn't. So I still have the condensing unit there. That's going to get pulled out a little bit later. Here is my electrical connections up here. So what I did was I disconnected this box, which sat on top just like the forward cabin AC. I disconnect all the wires. There was no labels on what was what on that box, so just needed to get it out of there so I can access the wires and narrow down out of the 15 plus wires that were there, what were the 4 main wires that I needed. So when I disconnected this box, and then I went back to the aft stateroom to see if I still had 120 volts, because I didn't know if the power source went direct back to the aft stateroom or if it went to this box first and then back to the aft stateroom. Lo and behold, when I disconnected this box, I didn't have the power back there. So that confirmed that the 120 volts first went to this junction box and then it went back. So that was the easy part of finding which wires were 120 volt, because again, turned on the breaker, and then I took a couple of the wires that looked like it was going up towards the breaker panel, checked it with my multimeter, and sure enough had 120 volts. And then down here, that is the pump relay box. So that's when the air conditioner turns on, sends a signal to that box that relays the power to the water pump, which is right down here. So it pumps the water through the units. So I was able to test for continuity with 2 of the wires that were going to that box to the 2 wires that were back at the unit, the red and black. But then the next thing was to figure out what were the hot and neutral power lines going back. And so you can see all of these wires here. There's some that are still bare that I'm going to cap off that are just unnecessary. So there's a series of colors, and I went through like every conceivable combination except the white and white, which lo and behold, that's what they did. They ran two white wires from the aft unit to here that ended up being the hot and neutral lines that I needed to connect to the main power source. So I hope that all made sense. So I finally was successful in splicing in the power source and then the pump relay and then of course the ground, which was pretty self-explanatory. So that's all hooked up. I need to tidy up these wires. I need to get this unit out of here, disconnect the copper lines, of course, to get it out of here, and that will be a job well done. It was a little bit daunting with all the wires, and I'm like, how in the hell am I going to figure this out? But you always have to just stick to the KISS method, which is the keep it simple, stupid method. Get rid of all the excess wires to just clear your mind, and then just think of the basic items that you need. I just needed those 4 wires, so those were the ones that I seeked out, and things went much smoother rather than just being concerned that there were so many wires and what was I going to do. You just take it one step at a time and you'll get there. If one of you ever ends up with this boat, now you know how this thing is set up, and you know it's 2 white wires that are coming up to the engine room from the aft unit that are your hot neutral 120 volt wires. So that should make your life a little bit easier, so you didn't have to go through what I just went through. So here are my notes for all of the different color combinations that I was going through, and that necessitated me to go back and forth from the engine room to the aft stateroom about 1,000 times, going up and down these steps. My knees were killing me by the end of the day. Okay, we're all finished. I've got everything tidy and secured. I've got these little brackets with the rubber feet that come with the air conditioner so the unit won't go flying when the boat's rocking around. Of course, we've got our inlet and outlet plumbing hooked up. No leaks, everything's great. Got the condensate line that goes down into the bilge. We've got our control box here for all the wiring. There are a couple of ground hookups on the unit, so you can hook the air conditioning system up to your bonding system on board, so you don't experience electrolysis with the unit. I did leave the temperature sensor in place. I might do the remote temperature sensor later on down the road, but it really doesn't matter that much here. So I did fail to mention that it does show you humidity as well. So you can set this control panel, which is right here. You can, when you're away, you can set it so that it controls the humidity of your boat, so that it keeps everything nice and fresh. So everything works great, so let's show you how this thing works. So we've got our little control panel over here. We're going to turn the power on, and you'll hear the blower ramp up. And this 9,000 BTU unit, I could have gone smaller than this. I mean, this thing blasts the air. I'm sure you can hear that. That blower is really powerful. And so I actually slow the fan down because I don't need it to be blasting like that. You can have it set to automatic, so it'll control the fan speed. It'll ramp up when it's really hot in here, and then it will slow down as you get closer to your set point. And in a second, you'll hear the compressor kick on. There it is. It's really quiet, and I've been sleeping wonderfully because it's nice and cold in here now. Cools it down no problem. It's quiet, and I'm really happy with it.
Join me next time as I discuss my last haul out and associated costs, and then I'll finally let you know what the total costs have been over the last 6 years for the repairs and upgrades that I have made. Thanks again for joining, and remember, if you're not floating, you're sinking, so stay afloat, my friends, and I'll see you next time.
I did mention, however, that I have had to have the have